All right. I want to thank everybody for coming out on this great evening. Clear skies for a little while at least. Um, I will now open this meeting, call it to order. And I will let you take it away.
All right, thank you, everybody, for coming in a little early. We have a public hearing in the council meeting, so we thought it might be nice to just go ahead and talk about this topic at a workshop. So we have joining us on Zoom, Brian Jelty and Alexis Bauer, and they are from Mackenzie, and they've been helping us to take a look at, the start of a facilities master plan. So in 2023, the council set a goal to evaluate developing a city facility master plan. That's about as an, first step, part A, little I of, just the very, very beginning. Let's evaluate developing it. So we've kind of been looking at how we would go about that. And this would include City Hall, Public Works, and the public library. And actually, we included our police also. So the city of Estacada selected McKinsey to assist with an evaluation of the existing conditions at each building and work with staff to determine an anticipated space needs program based on future growth projections. So we can say how many employees we think will add over the next 5 to 20 years. But then what does that mean to us? Because we don't necessarily have the skill set to say this is what we're going to need if this is how many employees we have. So that's what they were helping with us with. The main goal is to provide an understanding of the current and future space demands for each department and building. And this information provides a foundation so we can determine whether each facility can continue to function within its existing building as it is, whether there's renovations to the existing building that need to be made, or whether new facilities are required or desired. So this report that they're going to talk about is limited to just this, what the space needs may be. It was not an evaluation of architecture, accessibility, structural stability, anything. And so as we were going through this, I'm thinking, wow, it's really highlighting how subpar some things are. That's okay. Welcome, Jerry. But that it was just literally looking at space. So Brian and Alexis held staff interviews and did a walkthrough evaluation of our present conditions. They worked closely with Estacada Police, City Hall, Library, and Public Works staff to better understand the current space needs and projected those needs out based on a 20-year forecast. So staff has reviewed this, the report that's in your packet, and we are supportive of that information that's presented. Ultimately, like I said, this is step one of phase one of what the city buildings and public spaces will look like in the future. But how it actually comes out into reality really will be determined by a process that's based on what the council and what the community really wants and feels that they need. So I just want to turn this over to Brian and Alexis, and they're going to share their screen, I think, but I'll just let you take it away, Brian. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Melanie. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay. Okay, just a second.
Here it comes. Here it
Here we
comes.
go. Share it. Here we go. Technology, huh? I apologize. My video of myself is not coming up, and I don't know why. I've tried to check my settings. So you probably can't see me, but you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, again, sorry about that. I don't know why my video settings are not coming up. Anyway, yes, Alexis Bauer and myself with McKinsey Architecture and Interiors have been working with Melanie and her team to look at the space needs of what you have currently, what you have in the future. We kind of started this with the public works project. I don't want to get too much into the weeds. I know that you have a long evening in front of you. However, the first thing that we took a look at, some of you may know or may not know, there was a feasibility study completed in 2007 of the existing City Hall building. And that was basically a space layout. And then they did a report of some of the deficiencies, which were seismic and accessibility, basically the condition of the building, the roof structure, and the masonry and things like that. However, they did not do a full program of the different departments that you have within that building, within the Public Works building and within the library. So we worked with Melanie in putting together what you see in your packet. And let me just scroll down a bit. So what you see in your packet is basically the culmination of a questionnaire and interviews that we had done with Melanie and her staff, and again the rest of the departments within the city of Estacada within 3 buildings. So we looked at the City Hall building, as you are aware, you're in that building right now, and then we looked at the library, which is it's a fairly current building. It's a new building, very nice building, and then we looked at the older Public Works building, an older metal building that needs quite a bit of repair and improvements to kind of bring it up to current speed. So that's a bit of a context of how we kind of arrived at where we did for this particular presentation. But part of that, our team also put together a space needs questionnaire, and that questionnaire involved a series of questions that talk about your current staff, the kind of departments that you have, the arrangement, how do they communicate with each other, the types of furniture that they use, restroom facilities, and so on. So that type of questionnaire is standard for these types of projects. However, we tailor that for individual needs. And in this case, again, I looked at those 3 buildings. So we went through, we have standard layouts for space needs for each person, and some of the workstation needs, restrooms, and how they communicate with each other. Each department then has a questionnaire of the type of PCs, computers, workstations that they have, furniture that they use. And that's planned not only over the existing, but then it's projected over the next 10 to 20 years for your needs within the city as you grow and develop. That's a fairly common thing to do. Sometimes it's projected and sometimes it isn't. And sometimes you know and you don't. So that's why we put together this questionnaire. Again, just several items that we went through on the questionnaire. I'll kind of briefly go through these so that we can get to the full presentation of the findings. So again, it was a questionnaire of about, I think it was 13, 14 pages. And that was completed about a month and a half ago. And from that questionnaire, what we then do is we put together what's called a program. And Alexis is going to talk about that program from each of these spaces. So again, from our interviews and then from our questionnaire, that we put together the program that you see in your packet. And Alexis is going to talk about that. Let me bring up that. Here we go. Okay, so again, we worked at those 3 buildings. We went through here. And we have, again, our methodology, programming, staff interviews. Let me go down here so Alexis can get started. So, okay, so Alexis, if you could take it away from, again, you can start with the City Hall or you can start with the library and Public Works buildings, whichever you feel is probably appropriate for the council at this stage.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for having me again, Alexis Bauer. Work closely with the city's various teams and staff as they filled out those questionnaires, and then we went through in-depth interviews with each of those work groups to make sure we fully understood what the needs were, key adjacencies, and understood some of the needs and then deficiencies within your existing facilities to try to understand your workflow so that we can propose the best possible options kind of as we move into those future phases. So if everyone's all right, I think I might take Brian's suggestion and maybe start with Public Works in the library and then come back to City Hall. So as Brian had said, and as I'm sure you're aware, we've been working with the Public Works Department on their existing facility and realized that they needed to make some improvements to really just help bring that building up to code and increase the overall efficiency so that the existing building could work well for that group. So Brian, if you go to the next slide, we actually have the floor plan, not in its current state, but as is proposed in this next line of work where we're really taking the more office portion of that existing metal building and opening it up, creating a variety of different places for people to work as people are coming and going throughout the day, so that they've got kind of ultimate flexibility to support their functions, creating improved toilet and shower facility, as well as locker facilities and offices. And essentially through that questionnaire and programming exercise, we discovered that their existing office space really does work well for them with the improvements that we have projected here. And it really is more storage space on the site, as far as building some additional covered storage and perhaps lock storage to protect some of that equipment long term. But overall, with the improvements that we had proposed through a future or a past phase, the public works building as is really adequately sized to meet their needs from now and then into the future from a staff perspective. And then looking at the library function. So as Brian had said, that building was completed in 2006, which is crazy to think it's been almost 20 years, but it is a very nice building that seems to be functioning quite well for the library staff and the community. Through our interviews and program questionnaires, we really discovered that there were only a few minor things that might need to be updated to help address some security needs of staff. But for the most part, the library really is functioning well for the community now and into the future. And so there weren't huge growth needs that were projected, but really it was more about starting to look at overall maintenance schedule, because it has been 20 years, looking at some door hardware, potentially creating a schedule for finish upgrades to carpet, and then also in responding to the way libraries are being used today as opposed to how they were used 20 years ago, and then improving sight lines with the stacks. And so through our conversations, really determined that there weren't any major architectural changes or major growth that was required within the library building itself, but instead looking at just how you go about planning and maintaining that beautiful building that you've got so it can continue to serve your needs into the future. And then I think going back to City Hall. So again, a great historic building that serves a good group of people. So you've got your community development, finance, administration. I know Public Works has a drop-in office, as well as having the council chambers that's there. There is the second floor space. So Brian has there just the first floor plan, and you can denote, with the different colors. We've got the green are lobby and public spaces. The yellow spaces denote staff areas. And then the light blue are office support, a little bit of the facility core items, and the gray things like mechanical, electrical rooms, and then police. So you can see that the main floor is completely occupied as it stands now, and then the police drop-in occupy a small portion of the second floor. And the other space on the second floor really is utilized for storage at this point. And because of some of the existing constraints within the existing facility, as far as, stairs, toilet rooms, and those type of things, and the fact that the there isn't an elevator. At this point, that second floor square footage really can only be used for really non-occupiable spaces where you're not anticipating any public and, in theory, staff to be on that second floor. And then Brian, if you'd scroll to page 28 for the program summary. Here what we were looking at was, again, taking those, color-coded items that you saw on the map and looking at the lobby and public space, staff, office support, and core facility spaces. And then looking at across the top, you can see in that first row of columns, we've got the staff requirements from now into the future. So projecting going from 13 staff over to 21 staff as your community continues to grow. And then on the left side, it looks at your current space needs and then what that projection is for 10 years out and 20 years out. So you can see that at this point, we've got the building growing from just around your 7,000 square feet to almost 11,000 square feet to help maintain.
You're on fast forward. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, where did I lose you?
About 10 seconds ago, we still can't really hear you very well.
Is it,
Oh,
is it still
dear.
echoey? Try a test something. Test. Say a
Is
poem.
that better?
No, I wonder why it started
Now, yeah.
glitching.
No. Brian, are you having the same issue?
I've got the video. I can kind of call it from here, Alexis. I think that, again, what Alexis is going over is our summary sheets this is for the City Hall building. And Alexis, maybe you can try to drop out and then come back in and see if that helps your audio. Sorry about that. Again, this is a summary sheet for your City Hall building. And again, this wasn't an exhaustive look at the entire city, but what it was doing was taking a look at which departments you currently have and which departments you might have in the future, and then your space needs. So you can see that over time, you're not going to double in the next 20 years, but you're going to add more spaces than what you currently have. And there's a couple of key findings with the City Hall building. One is it's a very good building. You have a nice building there in the City Hall. However, in order to meet current codes and current needs, are several items that need to be addressed. One is the seismic, and that goes back to this 2007 report that talked about your lateral support in your roof and your lateral support in your walls. Those two items, I believe from our findings, did not get addressed. And moving forward, if you do improvements to that building, significant ones, likely you're going to have to do seismic improvements, as well as if you use that second floor that we talked about earlier, you're likely going to need to put in an elevator, as well as bring the access to that second floor up to code. So that's the square footage you see on the second floor doesn't really meet current occupancy code from accessibility standpoint. And then also from an HVAC, if you start to expand the needs of that second floor, your HVAC and electrical are going to need to be updated to current standards. And we do know that from our questionnaires and from our interviews that your restrooms in that building don't meet the existing needs. So Melanie and her staff are making do with what you currently have. However, we know that it's kind of underserved for the occupants that are in the building, let alone if you have a big gathering in those spaces. There's only a couple of restrooms. So if you start putting together the seismic, the accessibility, the elevator, HVAC, electrical, restrooms, that again, it's a good building. However, you would probably have to put. We didn't do a cost and assessment, but if you wanted to, we could do that in the future. However, the improvements would probably be in the millions of dollars if you wanted to improve that building. And so that was one of our findings of this report. And especially if you started to build out some of those spaces. Like currently, if you're in the council room right now, it's good square footage, but it's really not set up for the type of usage for office type spaces. It's really set up for big gatherings, say like a community room or council meetings or meetings like that. That's kind of what that space is set up for. So that's the city hall building. We get down to the other buildings, the library. Really, those needs are fairly well met. There's a couple of items from what we took a look at was they need some storage spaces. They also need some more private areas to meet in. However, the library is in fairly good shape. Melanie and her team with Dawn DeRoja also have us working on an improvements project like Alexis was talking about at their public works building. So that's underway right now. Those two projects or those two buildings are kind of in a good spot. It really comes down to the city hall building and how you see the future of that building from its current need. And then if you start to add law enforcement from a police standpoint, now this begins to add quite a bit of square footage or program to your current building. A police facility, what you have currently is a couple desks in the second floor. However, if you wanted to use this as an actual law enforcement building, it could be used. However, you need to have secure parking. You need to have intake of people that are brought in. You need to have interview rooms. You need to have holding. You need to have a gun and ammo storage. You also need to have officer meeting spaces and interview spaces. So that's a significant amount of space that would need to be added to the building if you were to add law enforcement. So that's another kind of key takeaway from our programming efforts with Melanie's team moving forward. So that's something that you need to kind of take a discussion with amongst yourselves and find out if that program is really something that you feel is important for the community. Then the current building that you have with that city hall probably doesn't meet your needs. It potentially could, but I think you would be putting a lot of money into that building to make that work. So that was kind of our key takeaway when we started to really dig into the questions and hear some of the responses from Melanie's team. So that's kind of the presentation portion of our discussions. Again, this is fairly new information. I don't think that the city had this information in the past. So what we presented tonight again is what you have current usage and then future usage. So if Alexis can come back on board, I don't know if she was able to do that, but we're very available for questions about our findings, about the report, and any other things that we could address that would help you come to some resolution on the report or your needs moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Brian?
Was the idea for the Public Works building, the 2,500 square foot deficiency projected in 2030 and even into 2045 would be an additional building and making use of the existing structure still?
Yeah, that seems to be the case. In talking with Melanie and Dawn about their current spaces, yeah, they have some deficiencies there, but they believe that the office spaces, if we do the improvements to the office spaces where they can meet and have their morning sessions, talk about what they need to do for the day, and then get on about their role, that takes care of that space. Now there are some other issues with the buildings in terms of wash bays, which they don't have. They're currently washing their vehicles outside. There's quite a bit of space between the existing buildings, and Dawn noted that I know you're putting in a water quality facility now. And I think you're adding one building out there. However, that wasn't part of our report, but that was just general discussions and walking around talking to Dawn and Melanie about those spaces. I think that they seem like they have most of their needs taken care of. However, there are some deficiencies in terms of maintenance and wash currently.
Thank you.
Another question? Paul.
So if it sounds like the main focus is the city hall, then that's what, we just don't have the space here to handle future needs. What do towns typically do? I mean, this thing's been here forever. It's a prime location. Is it recommended that you repurpose this building or tear it down and rebuild here, or just go out and look for new spaces? What would a typical next step be?
Yeah, in fact, that's an excellent question. That is, I think that's on the mind of Melanie in particular, as well as probably other people on the council. And again, from the 2007 report, and then also from our current report, it's a fantastic building. It's an iconic building within the town, like you noted, and it's right on your main street front. Most people know the building. However, yeah, repurposing the building would make a lot of sense, especially if you wanted to add a law enforcement function to your facilities. If you don't do that, you could probably get by with your existing building, add some improvements, and make the staff happy from that standpoint. But if you do add law enforcement, repurposing the building would probably be a good idea in terms of the amount of money you would have to put into the building and the parking areas to bring it up to that type of a facility. What it would be suited for? Well, obviously, we've kicked around the ideas of a community center of some sort. But there's a lot of good functions that building could serve moving forward. And I think, Melanie, you have your hand up if I look at my video correctly.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good question, Counselor Strobel. And actually, we just have a couple minutes left, but that was going to kind of be my takeaway here, Brian and Alexis. Thank you for presenting this. Is the council's moving into goal setting in the next several days for the coming year. And I was wondering what would be some logical next steps, because there's like so many, there's like, okay, do you look for property? Do you survey the community? What if the community wants? Do you look at cost? Do you look at there's like all these things that kind of circle around before you. And I think these take years to get through. And so what would be logical next steps that you see cities doing if the council was to set goals for how to move this forward, thinking long-term?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Well, what if you talk about the next steps, and this is actually what you guys are going through is extremely common in jurisdictions, especially that Estacada is looking to have growth. And when you have growth, you have more needs and you have more people that want to have a say in how your public functions and how your facilities function. So if law enforcement is important, what typically happens next is someone says, well, okay, well, as Melanie said, where and how much does it cost? So that's always the next question. So the next step would be a study that could be done in a matter of probably 3 months or 3 to 4 months, where we could take a look at a couple of different, could be either real sites or they could be hypothetical sites. And if you have a hypothetical site, then what we do is we have a three-part cost breakdown. And so you have actual construction costs, and then you have the soft costs, which are for design, engineering, and other types of permitting. And then you have the third cost, which are move in and furnishings and other costs like that. So that three-part cost summary gives you then a good breakdown of what it would cost. So what we try to do is we try to add enough contingency so if this takes the next 4 to 5 years to put into place, that you're not looking out 4 to 5 years from now and going, how come the cost went up 80% from where you told us it would be? In fact, that's something that we go through all the time. That's happening right now. If you look at a cost from 5 to 6 years ago, if you have 20% escalation, which we have had over the past 4 to 5 years, if someone priced out a facility 4 to 5, 6 years ago, it's almost double the price now. So we don't expect that escalation moving forward, but we try to anticipate those things with our cost estimators instead of giving you a cost at bare minimum and then have you try to fund something and then find out that funding comes up short in the future. So we try to anticipate all that and then make sure that we've got all those costs covered. So if we looked at maybe 2 to 3 sites hypothetically, or even real ones, we dig down in, we find the cost of the sites, the cost of the tax burden, and then we also work with a group that looks at impact fees in terms of how you could what your demographics are within your community, and then what you project for growth via single family residences, multifamily residences, commercial, and how those impact fees could then help offset the costs of a new, say, police facility or city hall within your community. In terms of locations, we would have to work with Melanie's group or the council to give us some suggestions as to what that would be. And then we would put together again, another 3 to 4 month study to then find out what those costs could potentially be and how big the facility would be.
Is that when we kind of take it to the community to see, what the community's most interested in? I'm not sure if you could hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we, after we get that report, then it would kind of go to, we do some kind of outreach to the community to see what they're interested or not interested in, or.
Yeah, because I mean, the next step is to find out what and where, and again, the cost.
Okay.
In terms of how to fund that, then that comes next. It can come now. You can do these things in parallel and or in sequence. If you do it in parallel, then you can start to talk about where does the funding come from. And I know that and trust me, I know from most communities there is either an appetite for going out and getting local bonds passed. Some are, and I know that Melanie has said you've just gone out and had a couple of bonds and issued. Some fail and some pass, and there's reasons for those. There's always reasons. But if a community has a strong need, they have a strong need for law enforcement, then we have to make the case, and we start early and we make the case. Say, well, this helps your community, it helps your property values, and it helps everyone at large. But again, we have if that is in fact a real need for the community.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think we're out of time, ready to start our regular council meeting. But was there any other questions? We can talk about this at goal setting too. And
Yeah, I think at goal setting, we'll go over this more in depth and then come back with an answer to that question.
okay.
It only occurs to me after looking at the price point to refurbish this building and put this building in the place it needs to be for you and your future needs. I think we've already answered our question, that a
Mhm.
new building would be a better way to go in a new location. So, but we can talk about this in our retreat and kind of figure out the direction we want to go on that.
Could you get one quick, it doesn't need to be answered here, but before our goal setting meeting, could you get a estimated cost per square foot of a recent project they priced out similar to what we would be needing?
Yeah.
I don't need that answer right now, but if
Okay.
you could get that for a goal.
All right,
setting.
I'll reach out to you, Brian, with that question. Sounds good. And thank you, Brian and Alexis, for joining us tonight. Appreciate that. Appreciate you going through the report with us, and turn it back to you,
Yeah.
Mayor.
And like you said, we thank you for coming and talking with us about this. This is greatly appreciated. And we will consider our situation going forward, and we will get back to you very soon.
Again, thank you. It was our pleasure, and thank you for having us. I will say in the future, I think that our team would love to be there in person. We will be. I think that especially when I'm someone who likes to be in person, not online. So this drives me nuts not having my video on. So we would definitely be there in person next time.
Well, I'm with you on that one. I'm a kind of an in-person kind of person too. So,
Yes.
So-
Right.
Great. Good.
all right, I will let you go, and then we'll adjourn this meeting.